Hey everybody, Joe Trutoli here. I'm with Greg Robbins, and some of you may know him and some of you may not. I've had the pleasure of cultivating a relationship with Greg over the last 5 or 6 years. I've watched his company grow to a very beautiful, attractive, massive operation. He has really made a name for himself in the under 65 space. And I'm very grateful to have the opportunity today to spotlight him as our agent spotlight of the week. We do very little business together. I'm hoping that relationship then strengthens as time goes on. But he was our top producer for our Mutual of Omaha critical illness product the last 3 years. And, you know, he's just an all-around great guy. So first question I'm going to ask is going to be the question I ask everybody, Greg. How did you get started in the insurance industry? What had attracted you to insurance?
Sure. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Joe. Good to be here. Appreciate you asking me. So quite simply, my introduction into insurance, I come from the financial space, and the annuity residual aspect of the insurance policy is what attracted me to it. It seemed like a business that could work for me while I'm sleeping, right? Mm-hmm. And since then, there hasn't been much sleep, but the business has been very fruitful, and I'm very glad I got into this 4 or 5 years ago.
Now, are you saying there hasn't been much sleep because you're working around the clock?
Building these agencies has been a lot of work.
Right. So basically what I hear you're saying right there, because I always touch on this, is that work ethic is the catalyst right now. Work ethic has gotten you to where you are, a big catalyst.
Absolutely. Sometimes I think maybe that might be the only hedge that I have against the competition is that I can.
Okay. It's a big deal. I promote that all the time, and that's why I kind of referenced it a little bit. So brings me to my next question, and that is, what would you say has been, one of your big struggles, one of your major setbacks, something that you consistently had to overcome, whether it was old or new? What we try to do is we try to let the people that watch these spotlight videos know that we all have struggles out there, and our struggles, although may be different, a lot of people can identify with our struggles.
Sure, absolutely. That's an easy one for me. Definitely been a lot of struggles, and I will say that the struggles inevitably led to growth, right? So and change. So I wouldn't change the path we've taken to get here for anything. However, probably the most challenging struggle that I've faced is this concept that the grass may be greener on the other side, and it isn't, right? That that changing products, changing carriers, mm-hmm. Thinking that if I make this adjustment or I sell this particular type of insurance or that, or if I add that it's going to do better for us, where in many cases, that led to a lot of very valuable learning experiences. But once you come full circle, you realize sometimes consistency and longevity mm-hmm. Is really where it's at, especially in this type of a book building annuity style business. Sometimes bouncing around from idea to idea can be very costly.
Absolutely. And basically what I'm hearing you tell me is that staying focused on the model has proven to be successful, but when you're faced with challenges where you have to adjust and shift the model, just small slight changes can be a very expensive upfront cost, but you keep the eye on the prize on the back end results from it, and that's been aiding to your success.
Exactly.
So that brings up my next question, and that would be, since the years that you've been doing this, what would you say has been the one major thing that has kept you moving in the successful pattern that you're in?
To be honest, I think that I like to say I've made just about every possible mistake you can in my space, which is why I have the most experience, right? I've sold every product for every TPA and every carrier, and but the one thing that I think has sort of carried us is the people. Right. So we have a really incredible team. And
I
I've
can
learned
vouch for
that,
that. Your staff is amazing, absolutely amazing.
and it's them that carried us through a lot of the difficult times. And how what I've learned is that we operate with honesty and integrity. And there's a lot of shiny objects out there, a lot of reasons to stray off the path. But I found that just treating people, being honest with whether it's with staff, with carriers. Again, it's not always the easiest path, but what ends up happening is, the integrity of the organization starts to attract positive and good people, and sort of the negative seems to dissipate and fall away. And so even though we've been up against some very, serious challenges in business over these
Mhm.
years, we always seem to end up with just the best people that are so dedicated and willing to do anything to get us across that finish line. And so, that's that final piece of this business that you can't buy. There's no contract. At the end of the day, you either create that energy within your organization or you don't. And for the type of business that we're trying to create, we need good people.
It's true. And that's one thing that I can say that I learned from our relationship is it makes complete sense to build the infrastructure first. And then once you have the infrastructure in place, you can place the product and the systems in. And once the infrastructure is working the way that you want it to work, I don't want to say it's a breeze, but it's so much easier to implement the model than it would be to build the infrastructure around the model.
Right. We like to take the pain up front,
Mm-hmm.
and then reap the benefits of our labor
It
thereafter.
makes sense. Absolutely. Um, this may be a hard question to ask, and I know it's not something we discussed before, and everyone knows I go over the questions ahead of time. And I did want to compliment, you have a very nice background. I could see
Thank
the
you.
pictures of your family. It's a beautiful office. I've been to your office. It's beautiful. But approximately how many people do you have working for you in your insurance kingdom?
For insurance, I believe we have about 50, 55 people right now.
So 50 people that you're responsible for to make sure that their paychecks are on time, their paychecks are paychecks that they can live on, they can support their families, they can feel good about coming back to work tomorrow. That's a very sizable organization, and you're only going to grow. I mean, I've sat in some of your growth focused meetings, and the vision that you guys have is just remarkable. It's attractive. It makes me want to be part of it. So I'm glad to have known you. Brings us to our last question, and that is, what advice would you give to the new agent out there, or the agent or agency owner that wants to make a transition into the telesales space, that's willing to put some capital together to do so? What would be the advice that you would give them? The one piece of, there's a lot of advice, but what would be the one that shines above the rest?
There's two items that come to mind with that question. One is, as we discussed, it's consistency, jumping around from place to place. Again, if there is, you can't be afraid to move on when it's time to move on, or make a significant change to either your employment or your organization. But knowing when it is time to make that change, and when it's time to buckle down and master the thing that's in front of you, whether you're a telesales agent with a headset on selling insurance policies on the phone, or you're running a 50-person insurance agency. Sometimes you just need to buckle down and master what you're doing in that moment before you move on to the next thing. But the other thing is, I would say, for an agent or an agency, or a potential agency owner looking to build, I would really want to know about infrastructure and support. I've learned that every carrier, every TPA, and every IMO promises these deep levels of support, and we're going to give you all of this. But once the contracts start flowing, the support seems to dissipate, right? And that's where I would really investigate, is how is this relationship? Again, even if I'm an agent in a cubicle selling insurance, which is usually where this thing starts, what kind of growth is there? Not necessarily are they paying me 10% more than the other guy, but what kind of infrastructure is being offered so that I can really build myself, my agency, long-term relationships is what I'm looking at. What is this relationship going to look like 1, 2, 3, 4 years from now, rather than how much money am I going to make in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, right?
Right.
So that's what I would be looking at.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a very good point. And what I got out of this interview was that you have set out on a vision, and within that vision you have goals, and you have just stayed on the path of reaching your goals within your vision. But as time goes on, you have to make adjustments to those goals to account for what life has thrown at you.
Absolutely.
Dealing with life on life's terms. Absolutely.
It is.
Majestic way of thinking. It puts you in that triumphant spirit of mind.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, Greg, listen, thank you. I appreciate you doing this. For those of you that don't know, Greg Robbins, Century Health and Life in Boca Raton, Florida. They focus primarily in the under 65 space. They're getting their Thundering Herd ready for the ACA that's still going on. That's going to close. The open enrollment. It's going to end in August, but then it's going to open up again in November. He's assembled an all-star cast, constantly growing. If you're in the South Florida area and you want to work within an organization that cares and takes care of their people, you want to talk to this guy. You look like you're to my left on the screen, but you're probably this way when we play the video. And if you're an agency owner out there and you're interested in getting into the telesales space in the under 65 market, there's a lot of big operators out there. And if we had to assemble a team of the top 10 outside of the publicly traded companies, Greg would be at that table. He's one of the more quieter people on social media. You would never know what his business success is if we didn't have an interview like this. He's a humble person, but I can assure you that with my firsthand knowledge that the size of his production company, it smokes anybody else in our social media space. I can promise you that. So definitely somebody you want to tap into if you're interested in expanding into that space. If you're going to be a 1 or 2 person office, I don't think you would be the right fit. But if you're looking to grow an office of more than just you and someone else, I think that it would be worth booking some time with Greg to see if you are a good fit. Was that an accurate way of putting it?
Absolutely. Well put. And we've expanded now where we have 3 locations: Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, and we've just opened our West Palm Beach office. And those are our actual satellite locations. But we have downlines all over South Florida. Generally, we do work with larger sized agencies, but there's always a home for anybody that's in our industry that is that could be an asset to any of our organizations. We're always happy to have that conversation. You
are the peanut butter of the jelly.
I couldn't have said it any better, Joe.
Well, Greg, thank you. You have a great day.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me.